Hello, this is Hannah.
Echo.
And Crystal.
And Dan.
Oh, and this is Culture podcast from the perspective of 3 YouTubers and a Dan.
Yeah.
I like the dramatic pause. It was really good, Echo. I'm glad you planned it like that.
I was like, oh crap. Yeah, that was like all. It was intentional.
Oh, absolutely.
Very intentional. Oh shit. How do we
I don't
want to
know
say
what we're
this?
saying. We have shirts now.
Woo woo!
You've
Yes,
been
we have
asking.
shirts.
Yeah, we
We're
did.
Random side note.
providing. We have shirts. You can buy them. Help us put this on SoundCloud more regularly.
Yes, mainly the reason that we're selling shirts is to pay for the SoundCloud account. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it. It's all just
Yeah.
going back into the podcast. And this shirt design will only be available for the summer of 2018.
Yes.
And then when it's gone, it's gone.
Forever.
And the
Yep.
link is in the
So-
description of whatever you're watching this on, so go ahead and click on that. They're on
Yep.
Teespring.
Yep.
They'll be soft and beautiful, and they'll last a really long time. I have a ton of Teespring
Yep.
shirts.
They're great.
So today, we're going to talk about mental health issues, which there are a lot of them. Yeah, so let's just jump into this. I'm Hannah. Should we just go through our mental health,
Yeah.
Sure,
And
let's
then,
just make this
we'll
like a
go through
round
that.
table of mental
Let's-
health problems.
I'll go
Yes.
first because I'm very open about it. I love talking about it. I feel like the more you talk about it, the more it helps younger kids identify problems with their own selves and I don't know. It helps a lot
and
of
it
people
helps remove the stigma from
destigmatize.
culture.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm Hannah. I've been diagnosed with a anxiety disorder, a few depressive bouts, but nothing too serious on that end. I mean, well, here we are. And I am taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety combo drug, and it's been working extremely well. So I've been on the up and up, and that's, here's a little bit of hope for you. It gets better once you figure it out. I promise.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
It really does.
Yeah. Okay.
It really does.
That's all of me.
Okay.
Okay. Crystal, you go.
Okay. I haven't been to a therapist since I was 9, but then they said that I had what was then called ADD, but that was like the 90s or something, so now I think it's just ADHD, which made me almost flunk out of elementary school, and I had to go on medication.
That's a good time.
And then I had to get off the medication because it was the 90s and it doubled as a dieting pill, and I lost a fuck ton of weight. So then I was self-managing my ADHD since then, and now I'm poor and I don't have money to go to a therapist. But based off of the little bit of research I've done and the times I've gone through, I've had a few spouts with some pretty bad depression. I have very, very mild, but it happens, anxiety attacks, and I have social anxiety.
Neat.
I've never been diagnosed with that specifically, but looking back on since I was 3, I've been deathly afraid of talking to people, and my mom can attest to that. Anyway, I should go to a therapist. Moral of this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, it's good. Sometimes it's helpful.
Also, I can't speak for myself on this one, but I live with my husband, who also doesn't have money to go to the therapist, but we're both 90% sure he has PTSD.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was in the military. That's pretty fucking common.
He was in
Yeah.
the military, had some rough times before the military, and your boy has all the symptoms of PTSD. So we've been
Yikes.
self-managing that as well.
Yeah.
So,
I've heard
yeah.
you talk about that. I would not be surprised at all.
Pretty much. When
yeah.
you look at the symptoms and you look at my hubs, it's pretty, he has it. And it's untreated, of course, because we don't have money for therapy.
And this is America.
This is America.
Okay, cool. I have clinically diagnosed depression. Yeah.
Woo!
But I'm on antidepressants for it now, which
Good.
is great. It helps so freaking much. I had a really bad episode last year, and it finally pushed me to just figure it out, despite the fact that I'm pretty poor. I had a lot of help, and I was able to be professionally diagnosed and actually get treatment for it. And now my life is infinitely better.
Woo.
That's awesome.
It's great. And then Dan, our lovely guest today.
Yes.
Yes. Do you
Hi.
want to go ahead and well, first of all, introduce yourself.
Yes.
And then go ahead and give maybe a brief summary of like everything, your existence.
Okay.
Your entire life.
Topic.
Go.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Life story, 2 sentences.
Blah, blah, blah. So, my name's Dan. I've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, specifically bipolar 1 disorder, which is like the mood swings. Currently taking medication for that and also seeing a therapist and a doctor.
Yeah.
Psychiatrist, I guess.
Nice. And you're like in the thick of it. Is
Yeah.
What I like to say, because this is a recent thing for
This
you.
is pretty recent.
Yeah.
It started, I'd say about 3 months ago is when I was diagnosed, and I had what's called a manic episode. I can go into more detail about that later.
Yeah.
I would love
It
to hear
was-
more.
Yeah, and currently I'm in a bit of a depressive episode, but I'm trying to be hopeful, and I'm hanging in there. So.
That's
That's
awesome.
good.
We're proud of you.
We went to college together, is how we know each other.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, and you're married
Yeah.
to like my friend Betsy.
Yeah,
Yes.
my
So
wife
you're
was
also-
my wife was her roommate.
Yeah, that's how I think
Aw.
we were originally introduced, and then we've all just been like friends ever since.
Oh, that's awesome.
I recall these stories. Can
Mhm.
confirm.
I've told them all about you guys so much.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's awesome. I've personally never had the chance to talk to anybody that was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, so I'm pretty excited to hear your side of this because no knowledge, nothing up here. So,
Yeah, that's fine.
before we delve into the deep of this, do we want to just talk about our general ideas of mental health and stuff? Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah.
Just in general, as it's definitely taken, that whole term of even mental health, mental illness has huge uptick in the last 10 years or so. Everybody's been destigmatizing it basically because in the 70s, 80s, nobody talked about that shit. Even PTSD, everybody was don't be such a wimp, which is
Yeah.
great. Depression, just cheer up. So
Just-
helpful, right?
Just stop being depressed.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
stop
Stop it.
your
Just
mental
smile.
health issues.
Just be happy. It starts on the outside, guys. Did you know? So recently we're starting to realize that there's actually a fucking chemical thing wrong with you. And that is extremely helpful in the whole, just the journey of figuring out what's wrong with you because it definitely feels like a physical illness a lot of the times. So my first question to all of you is, what do you think of people self-diagnosing? Because with all of this huge uptick in awareness and stuff, people are like, that's me. I'm labeled. Let's not go to a therapist. I'm labeling myself.
I think I could I have a pretty good opinion on self-labeling because I don't go to a therapist. I definitely think you need to be knowledgeable and careful and don't just dive head first to be like, this is it, that's it, boom.
That's the one.
I'm 28, just disclaimer, I've been dealing with whatever I've been dealing with for most of my life, and around, I think, 22, I started deciding to just try to learn stuff, and I'm not a hypochondriac either. I'm not one to be like, I have cancer! So, if you don't have money, if you can't even do something like BetterHelp, which is I think $32 a week or something, which right now I can't, it's okay to read up about how you feel. I feel this way, I feel that way, and look into it and learn about it and do your best to try to manage it. But just to be I have depression, it's official, that's what it is. It's probably not the best idea. But you also can't go untreated, you know what I mean? Because then you're just kind of stuck.
You're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Stuck in a bad place.
For sure.
So that's what I suggest. Look into it, but don't just decide things.
Yeah, I think it's good to take the time to self-reflect and if you have a slow burn kind of thing, with depression, for me at least, it's been it was a thing that I had when I was a child, and then it kind of slowed down and then it flared back up again, but it's been this slow burn lifelong thing, so it's the kind of thing that could be kind of put off, if that makes any sense, in terms of being officially diagnosed until it got to the point where it wasn't. But because I spent so much time thinking about it and trying to figure out what I had myself, I was able to go into my therapist's office with the with semi-accurate language and be like, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. What about you, Dan?
I think knowledge is power. So the more you learn about mental illnesses and how it relates to your life, I think the better off you'll be. But I also think that there's a big power to clinical diagnosis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As far as just kind of making sure that, you know, you don't want to just guess on this stuff.
Yeah.
You want to just say, like, yeah, I think I'm depressed.
Right.
It's
And
like,
there's
okay,
like 3 or 4 different types of depression.
Yeah, there's different types of
Yeah.
depression. There's different types. I mean, bipolar has a depressive element to it. So, like, really, like, you can't just, like, decide that. I mean, you can think that you have something and research it, and that's great. You know, more power to you. But I think there's a lot of credibility to a clinical diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, so in my experience, I had thought I had anxiety for years, and I was like, you know, it's getting to a point where I'm not being able to handle it by myself. Let's Google it. So I went on this, like, Google deep dive for a week of, like, let's do the coping tactics that fucking BuzzFeed says, you know?
Thanks,
And I was
BuzzFeed.
like, yeah, it's great. And so I tried them all, everything that was online, and then I was like, I really should just go to a therapist and a doctor. And so I did, and, you know, I had what I thought I had, and a lot of that is, a lot of these people, like therapists and stuff, obviously it depends on who you're going to get help, but a lot of them will just take your word for it. So if you come in and you're like, I have this, they'll, like, ask you a couple questions, and then they'll be like, here's some medication for what exactly you thought you had. And sometimes that's great. But other times it's not what you thought. Like, if you, Dan, had gone in for depression and they'd just given you depression medication as opposed to more specific bipolar medication, obviously I'm not a chemist, I don't know what the fuck the difference is, but it's a different chemical imbalance, you know? So I would imagine that wouldn't cover everything. It's great to go get an actual diagnosis from a good person who wants to ask you questions and isn't just going to take your word for it, because you don't have, unless you do, you don't have that degree. You're not an expert in this unless you are, and you don't know what the heck you're talking about unless, of course, you do. Then, you know.
Speaking of, I know this is kind of like a duh, but there are some people out there who are therapists who make a lot of money doing therapy who don't have PhDs.
No, yeah.
Don't go to them.
Yeah, no.
Like the weird motivational, like, oh god, what's his name? Prince E? Did you hear about that whole thing with,
No.
He's this dude who, he makes these, like, motivational videos, and they're very, very, like, pretty, but they're not very, like, scientifically supported. He's very, like, you can beat the depression by the power of will kind of stuff, and it's like, no,
you can't.
Go see a doctor, please, go see a doctor.
Yeah, I've heard a handful. I've come across people who are like, oh, I go to this person, and they say, don't do medication, and then you need to reflect on the inner something crystals, and it's just kind of like, just go to a PhD doctor, get your ass actually diagnosed, and if you want to go into the deep other realm, then do that, but you definitely need a professional doctor's opinion.
It's your body, obviously, it's your choice of what you want to do, but I can tell you right now, homeopathic shit is not going to help with a chemical imbalance. It's just not.
No.
Yeah.
And you can, if you want to try, like, natural stuff and coping tactics and just plain therapy, go for it. Heckin' go for it. But if it gets to a point when you're, like, contemplating suicide, which is a side effect of a lot of these mental illnesses, go get help that day. There are places you can walk in and just chill until you're feeling better. Like, that is a thing you can do. And I wanted to mention, a lot of people don't know this, if you're going to a school, I can almost guarantee they have a counselor there that you can go to for free at almost any time. Like, just whenever. Or, like, a health clinic. Even in America, where we have terrible healthcare, you can still, for free, go to a counselor at a school. I know almost every college, I think, has pretty great counseling, although they're not usually, like, doctors. They're not going to give you meds, but they can at least give you some help if you need it. And also, suicide hotlines, they're a thing. you know, talking it out isn't always going to help, but it can at least help an immediate situation. Just think about some stuff before you take an action that you're not going to be able to take back. That's all. I know that's going to be so helpful when you're in that deep, dark place. You know, I just have to say it. It makes me feel better when I say it. All right. Do we want to move on to another question? I feel like I'm interviewing you guys.
No, you're fine.
So, okay, I mentioned coping tactics. This is like one of my favorite things. I know we obviously all have different diagnoses. They're all over the map. But as far as coping tactics, I love hearing other people's things because I try them all. I'm on a very low dosage of my medication, and I don't want to pick it up too much because I'm always scared it's going to take my personality away.
Oh, yeah.
Or make you, like, really tired, and there's, like, a ton of side effects. Yeah.
I am hesitant. I want to get professionally diagnosed, 1,000%. I've always been hesitant about medication because my brother and my mother, my brother's bipolar, clinically diagnosed, and my mom was something. I was too young. But they were both on medication for a really long time, and it just kind of ruined their bodies to the point that they had to get off of it, and watching them get off of it was just, it hurt physically to watch them.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
And then myself on that one medication wasn't a good time either.
It, honestly, trying different meds, it sucks. It's just a part of it you have to do.
Yeah.
And anybody who's going through that right now, like, fucking bless up, man. Fingers crossed the
right
next
here.
one works.
Yeah,
bless
he's
up,
literally
man.
going through that right now.
Hey, let's talk about that. Tell me about all your med troubles, because I got really lucky. The first one I tried, pretty much,
same.
You know, it worked pretty well.
Bipolar yours was sudden. Like, bipolar is a very, like, suddenly you have it kind of, or it, like, flares, or how does
yeah. So, it's
it's complex one. This is why I wanted to bring you, because it's like there's so much to it.
It's so interesting. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's hard to medicate bipolar because I can't just be on an antidepressant.
Yes.
I have to be on kind of more of like a mood stabilizer. And right now we're just still at this is what sucks is it's all just like trial and error.
Yeah.
And just like, hey, let's try this and see if it works. And then one week I was kind of suicidal, and we're like, okay, that one didn't work. Let's try this instead. So now I'm trying a new medication. I just started this week, but the thing is, it might take up to a week to a couple weeks for it to be like fully effective.
That sucks.
So I'm in that like trial period.
Yeah.
And I actually had to request some time off from work because it was just too much for me.
That's totally fair. I hope they can understand because that is totally understandable.
You need a day to yourself.
It's a medical issue. I mean, it's just what it is. If you had a broken leg, they'd be able to see it and understand. This is just the same thing. It's just hidden.
You just can't see it.
You just can't see it, which is such
like
a fucking
invisible broken leg.
Yeah. Except I'd say 100 times worse. That's another thing that I think people don't always realize about meds. A lot of antidepressants and stuff can actually make you suicidal, which is so counterintuitive. But the problem is, when you're depressed, you don't have the motivation to do a lot of things. And then when you get the medication to motivate you more, it motivates you towards suicidal tendencies that were already there. And I had issues with that when I was figuring out my depressive bouts as well. But thank God now it's just anxiety.
Yeah.
Whew. Bless up, man. Just anxiety. We can deal with that. Yeah, that sucks. That must be a whole new level with bipolar because there's so many layers to it.
Yeah, it's pretty complex.
But what I was going to ask... What?
Oh, I was going to say, going back to your original question, day-to-day management.
Yes, that's what I was
each of our things.
It's a struggle, man, every day. But I love to learn. What do you guys do?
Do you have any coping methods that you're working with at the moment?
Yeah, I'm seeing a therapist right now.
That's a big one.
And she's kind of been helping me to just talk to me and just kind of turn things around, try to introduce more positive thinking strategies.
That's awesome.
And I did this, it's called IOP, it's like an intensive outpatient program, which was using something called CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's just a fancy way of trying to change your ways of thinking.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a big deal, changing the way your thinking patterns and stuff.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. When I was in my suicidal phase, that was a big deal, was trying to fix the patterns of behavior that were causing that, because you can't just take meds for that sort of thing, which fucking, it's the worst. It takes so much longer than you think it would.
Yeah, and I think the best thing I learned was that, like, thoughts, behaviors, and emotions are all linked together. And thoughts can just be a reaction. And sometimes you don't have control over your thoughts.
Yeah.
And that can lead you to do some pretty wild things.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
But, so a big thing that I learned is just kind of controlling your thoughts. So, like, you might think something, but... And also just, like, not acting on your impulses.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Is a big one.
I totally understand.
So
I personally like to, like, any intrusive or, like, annoying thoughts. A big part of anxiety is repetitive thinking, kind of drilling yourself into a hole where you just can't get out. I like to kind of personify it and give it, like, a little stupid 8-year-old face. And I'm like, you're a stupid 8-year-old. Why would I listen to you? You're telling me things that don't logically make sense. Step away.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I actually, with the depressive side, I kind of relate it to a black dog.
Nice,
And
yeah.
I just picture myself kind of kicking the dog to the side.
Understandable.
No! Me and Echo both
I
have
know you
black
do the
dogs.
rubber
We're
band
like-
thing too. You do the rubber band thing too.
Sometimes.
Because, like, that was the thing that they taught, like, my class when I was in, when I was going to, like, ASU. That was one of the, like, behavioral changes, because it, like, brings it into, like, a physical sensation, which I thought was very interesting.
Like
But
snapping
it's just,
the
like,
rubber band.
Yeah.
I used to do that
Yeah,
as
so
well.
it just kind of brings you back to reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you-
it makes you very mindful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another, like, coping strategy is mindfulness.
Yeah.
Just kind of, like, focusing on being in the present. I heard something from, I think it was, like, I don't know, some, like, famous Chinese dude or something. But it was like, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. But if you're at peace, you're living in the present.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
that.
Something like
That's
that. So
yeah, all of that, pretty much. Probably the less honed in version of that is what I've been doing for the anxiety depressive part of what I've been dealing with. I've noticed a lot of, like, I don't have a personification of it, but if I catch myself getting into a spiral of negative thoughts, I have to be like, stop, like, no. I physically, like, do, like, I'm doing motion with my hands. You can't see it in the podcast. But I put it over there, and I'm just like, that is not what needs to be in my head right now.
Yeah.
That and positive, not forced positivity, that's so toxic, but daily affirmations. A lot of my negativity is self-directed, which I have no idea if that's normal. But, so I, have to be like, the things that I'm mad at myself about or being hard on myself about, I have to be like, no, I'm good at this. Why am I good at this? Blah, 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 blah. And it takes like 30 seconds a day. That's been helping myself a fair amount.
yeah, that's something my therapist actually recommended, was keeping in, like, an affirmation journal and just every day just think of 3 positive things that you did that day. And
Oh, I've heard of that. Like, to-done lists. Like,
To-done.
list of, this is what I accomplished today kind of thing.
yeah, and just kind of, instead of focusing on, like, what you didn't accomplish, which is, like, a negative, you want to focus on what you did accomplish and what you did do right. And that's been a big help. Also, journaling has helped me tremendously, just kind of getting your thoughts out of your head and onto paper or onto, like, the computer or something.
I used to do this thing similar to that, called morning pages. So I just would wake up and I had a journal next to my bed when I was feeling particularly negative. Like last year, there was like a 6-month period where I was like in a really bad headspace. And I read that journaling would help. And somebody recommended morning pages, which is waking up before you check your phone, before you get coffee, before you do anything, is open your journal and just write a string of consciousness 3 pages. It can just be the same word. It could be scribbles. It could be whatever. But write 3 pages to get it out of your head. And to start your day with a clean slate.
I like that.
Helped moderately.
I like that.
I would do a lot of, I had a big whiteboard I bought specifically because I'm such an anxious person, and anytime I had things just going in circles in my head, I would just write it on the board. And it kind of felt like, it's one of those things where you have to physically do something. That helped me a lot. Like the rubber band thing, writing things down physically saying things out loud when it was running in my mind, just getting out of your head for a second, because that's where the problem is. It really helps. And I know this might feel like such stupid things when you're in the thick of it, but they add up. And I promise you, doing like medication trials and stuff, it's no fun. If any of these work for you, it's just such a relief. Like, it can really add up and help, I promise. I did meditating for a while. I've tried everything.
Oh, meditating. Yeah. I love meditating. I was going to say that.
I was okay with it. I didn't love it. I thought it was alright. I paired it with, like, yoga.
It depends.
That was
nice. It
nice.
depends on the type of meditations.
Yeah.
I've noticed. I wasn't into meditating for a long time because it was a lot of, like, music, and you're just like, what am I doing besides sitting here quietly? But there's this podcast that I was listening to. I don't really listen to them much anymore, but they're called The Liturgists, and they do a bunch of, like, science, spirituality, blah, blah, blah. But they had done a dive into the psychological effects of meditating in various types, and they did, like, anywhere from 5 to 20-minute meditations that were free, that they guide you through it, and they're all affect different parts of the psyche and do different things. Anyway, they were very helpful and very unlike anything I'd done before, and now when I find myself like in a need to meditate, I can go back to one of those methods that's very purposeful and like, okay, I'm doing this now, rather than just closing my eyes and being like, let me listen to peaceful music. It was so unnecessary.
Boring.
I think one of the simplest ones was what was it? Just find a keyword that's, good to you. Some, they went through like a whole bunch of different ones. Some, it was just your breath. Maybe it was something like
I did
God.
a lot of
Maybe it was
exercises.
Something like
that helps
just
with
a word,
panicky stuff.
Yeah, put like a word that's like helpful to you, like that's a positive word, and like they said, place it on your consciousness like a tissue on a comforter, and let your mind wander and take in deep breaths, but always draw your attention back to the word if need be. Anyway,
I like that.
Is so helpful. It's such a simple thing, but it made the world of difference with my anxiety and such.
Yeah, I learned one too that was basically you have your thoughts and you think of kind of a river with leaves falling onto the river. Each thought that you have, you put on a leaf and have it go into the water.
Nice.
And just
I like that.
I like
yeah,
that.
visualizing
drift
things
away.
Helps me a lot. For whatever reason, like putting a picture on whatever thoughts I'm having, it helps. Again, it's one of those like you got to pull it out of just kind of weird, wishy-washy, abstract things and physicalize it in a way that you can control it more. That's pretty much what it's all about. It's like control.
Yep. My other favorite, very simple one, and then we can move on, but it's a very good one, is just taking in a deep breath. And when you take in a breath, imagine the breath starting like a small light and then having it grow and grow and grow and grow and grow in your body until it's like shining out of you. And then when you breathe it out, you're like breathing the good that was in you into your life. And so each breath in is like breathing goodness into you, and then you breathe it out. It's almost filling the room that you're in, and it helps, I don't know, put your head in that mind space. Mind space, that's not a word. It's okay. I'm a professional,
Headspace.
Obviously.
Headspace.
Headspace. Yeah,
There we
that's
go,
the one.
Headspace.
That's the one. I've heard so many times, everything I read is like exercise. Exercise has never worked for me as like a helpful thing. It's always been another level of anxiety for me. As like
I can understand.
I have
it
to
can
now.
It's a have to rather than a feel better thing.
And now that I'm in a better place, of course, like walking and stuff is fine. It's not a chore as much as just like a positive time where I get to reflect on myself. But I was wondering if you guys have, because I've heard it on everything ever. Exercise.
Very much. David's PTSD is it has anxiety and depression parts of it, but his PTSD is whenever he does work out, it adds like a normalcy. It adds like a
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing something with my life that is helpful and productive,
Yeah.
and it puts him
It
in
gives
the
you like a
headspace.
system.
Yes, it gives him a system, and the endorphins that it releases thereby makes him feel better. He looks better. He has more energy. It's less of a I have to do this, more of a if I don't, I won't feel good. So it does. I think maybe it just depends on the thing that you're struggling with.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah, that's fair.
For me, if I'm exercising, it's because I'm adding it to a routine, and it's not necessarily the exercise, but the routine that makes me, like, that helps me cope with depression is just
Routines,
having, like,
for sure.
this is when I am going to do this thing, and then doing it makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something. So it's just the organizational aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm going to try to implement over the next couple weeks, is just having more of a structured, I guess, schedule.
Yeah.
Because I went back to work, and I took 2 months off of work, and then I went back to work and for about a month, and just it was hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because as soon as I went back to work, I kind of fell into a depressive episode, which made it like that much harder. So that's why I finally made a decision, like, okay, I just can't do this anymore, and so I'm taking 3 weeks off now to just kind of, build myself back up to a point where I can work.
Yes, that makes such a big difference. That's actually what David did for a while recently. When we moved into this new place that we're in, we worked like really hard to, we took a lot of time off. But anyway, it was go, like every day for a few weeks. And we were trying to keep up our video schedule. We were trying to rip up the floors in our apartment. We were trying to do a lot. I'm dealing with property and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, David's PTSD also started flaring up because it was the anniversary of when he got into and left the military. And so he started having night panics and all this stuff. Anyway, he is my video editor. For those who don't know, half the reason why any of my stuff gets done is because of my husband. He's my animator, video editor, storyboarder, life organizer. He couldn't, and he felt so bad. He's like, we're not making videos, and it's my fault. I'm making us fail, and it just did not help his mental health at all. But whenever he sat down to work, his mindset just was not good. His mental health was not in an okay place, and he couldn't work, and it just made him feel worse and worse and worse. Anyway, all that to say, even if you don't have a boss being like, maybe you should take time off, taking time off is okay. Like, David took, I think, 3 weeks to just not for a while, and then sometimes he still needs to take a few days to just not. You need to take care of your mental health, and that's totally fine.
Mental health days are very important.
Yeah, and pretty much the exact same thing happened to me where I was so before all this happened, let's say 6 months ago, I was at a level at my work where I was happy and I'm productive and everything was good. And when I went back to work after all this happened, I wasn't at the same level, and so I was constantly like comparing myself to how I used to be.
That's
that is toxic. Yeah,
and that just drove me into a hole because it's just I was constantly disappointed with myself, and I felt inadequate. I felt like I'm not doing a good job, and that went on for about a month, and at one point I cut my hours from 8 hours a day to 6 hours a day, but it still wasn't enough. There's days where I just can't today, and I stayed home. I probably used all my PTO for the year, but and then I'm like, all right, I just need to take time off, and luckily my doctor was able to sign this FMLA stuff that it's like the Family Medical Leave Act, which lets you leave work. And I'm also very fortunate that my boss is super understanding, and
Yeah, you have a great workplace.
yeah, it's really a great company, and my boss is awesome. But yeah, I'm just trying to get better and giving the medication a chance to kind of kick in, and I'm really hoping it works.
Yeah.
Pushing yourself when you're in a bad state already is just recipe for disaster. I did that last year, and I was like, I'm gonna upload every week, and then I put myself into that hole right there. And then I was like, but I was doing so good, and blah, 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 spiral. To the point where I had to make myself not do anything. Like, today and tomorrow, I had to make myself not do anything, and I beat myself up for it, but it's like, just stop. You have to, like, I did the thing where I had to put it over there. I was like, stop. Like,
and you gotta be kind to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. That's what I'm struggling with now, is because I'm very critical, especially of myself, and I was kind of setting unrealistic expectations for myself,
that absolutely
and
makes sense.
not meeting those expectations, which made me feel bad and
Yep.
made me just kind of spiral down.
I mean, us three are all self-employed, so I think we totally get that, because all the expectations are self-set, and it hurts.
Yep.
Yeah.
It still hurts when you can't meet them. I mean,
That
it might actually
and
hurt
also-
more because you're so mean to yourself. I feel like most everybody is more mean to themselves than anybody else.
Of course.
It helps me to talk to myself like I would a friend when I'm beating myself up for not doing blank. It's like,
oh yeah,
would you talk to any of your friends this way? Absolutely not.
No.
You would never. You wouldn't have any friends left.
It's also
I feel like
what go.
I was just gonna say, with bipolar, it's even like it's even, I was gonna say it's worse, but it's like more direct, because it's such a very like sudden onset thing.
Okay.
You have that, like, you have your like peak right next to your like lowest point, so it's very like a very clear comparison, and it's easier to feel like you're doing worse because you can see like your highest and lowest points so closely.
Yeah.
Whereas with something like depression, anxiety, it's like a slow burn kind of thing, where it's more sloped, if that makes any more sense.
And I
Whereas
think
yours is like a
it's
cliff.
a unhelpful thinking habit called compare and despair.
I like that.
Yeah,
Like, as
that
a-
is
as
good
phrase.
ring
I love
to
things
it.
that
I like
rhyme.
it. I love things that rhyme. It also, on that note of, like, I guess layering mental health problems, it's like when you have, depression, anxiety with bipolar, you have this experience. Both David and I know that I have ADHD, or at least attention deficit disorder. 90% sure on top of everything, David also has ADHD, just because I have it and I know what it looks like. That makes it hard to focus. So it's a lot less being mean to yourself, a lot less like any of that, but it's like, I need to move, I need to do something, I can't do this. So with David, it's very physical. He has to get up, he has to stop doing something, he has to fiddle, which is why working out works so well for him. For me, I will daydream a whole entire book series, and then the whole day's gone, which is why I was failing elementary school. So but it ruins your ability to focus. So like that, on top of the depression, anxiety, is like, beating yourself up about not being able to do stuff, and then, oh, I can't sit still, I can't even work, or, oh, I can't even not get on Twitter for 2 seconds because I'm thinking about something else. You know what I mean? It's, when you know, I guess, the layers of what you're dealing with, you can better dissect them and place them in where they need to go. That's the
That makes
moral
sense.
of that whole spiel.
On the
And
topic-
for
Go.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I was going to say, for me, like, I don't think I have ADHD or ADD, but the depression and anxiety makes it extremely hard for me to focus and concentrate, because I'm, like, constantly, like, second-guessing myself and constantly,
Totally
like,
understand.
yeah.
Oh, also the restlessness
Oh,
too,
man.
just as a side effect of medication, doesn't help. At least for me, that didn't. Like, because that was a side effect when
Oh,
I
yeah.
was first taking my medication, and they had to change my dosage. Restlessness sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, the dosage I want is just the dosage that, like, cuts it to where it's not unbearable anymore. But
Yeah.
honestly, like, if you need more, if you can't handle it, like, there's no problem with going in and saying, I need a higher dosage, or I need a different medication. Like, you need to be your own advocate, because nobody else is going to be. You got to go in and say, this doesn't work for me. You have the right to do that, because you're paying for all this shit. Go in and say, this isn't right for me, I need something different. You mentioned social media. I was going to say, another thing for me was cutting out, like, almost all my social... As a social media person, that's my job. But cutting down my time of spending on there, it is almost, like, it just needed to happen. It was the most helpful thing for me. And I love reading comments and stuff, but I needed to stop doing that every second of my life. And that kind of stuff, it's so damaging.
It becomes neurotic, almost like I have to check.
Yeah,
And then you go back and you're like, am I getting affirmation? Am I getting that endorphin release? Or am I getting negative stuff? Am I having to feel bad about myself? Am I going to reaffirm stuff that I've been thinking all day long?
Yeah.
So it's like...
not a good time.
Yeah, social media, it's hard because then you have professionals being like, well, you need to be on social media all the time to be successful at the social media. And I'm like, okay. And then I try, and then I'm just like, oh, God, what am I doing? Yeah. Like, I can't do it. It's not helpful.
It's because, like, you have to know what's happening in the world, but so many of the things that are happening in the world are so depressing right now.
So awful. Yeah, I understand. It's one of those things you just have to limit, and I mean, people, it's not the source, but it is a big cause, I feel like. So, just be careful.
It doesn't help.
Yeah.
I have a random weird thing. I started playing this, like, stupid game called, like, Mandrake Boys, and it's just like you plant little chibi anime characters. It's really stupid and collect illustrations. It's a boring game, whatever. But it got me off of Twitter. So I haven't cut down the amount of time that I'm on my phone, but I cut out the level at which I was watching the world burn live on Twitter. So by I just kind of changed it, if that makes any sense.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's one of those weird things that's helped me.
I tend to, because I have ADD or in ADHD, it uses escapism like hardcore when I'm depressed, which turns into not being productive or anything, which makes me beat myself up and whatever. I found that when I was coping with that, taking that and like funneling it into a healthy thing was super helpful. So in the middle of me having like a bad episode, I started daydreaming all the time, and I was like, okay, I need to write something, and I wrote a stupid fan fiction. It's stupid. Like, I'm never gonna let anybody read it, but it helped me feel. I was like, oh, I'm sharpening my writing skills. I'm doing something productive. And a lot of people would be like, well, you make videos for a living, isn't that your creative hobby? Not anymore. Okay, it used to be, now it's stressful, and it makes me not creative.
I totally
so doing something that had no expectations, nobody was going to read it, nobody was going to see it. Yeah. It made things a lot better. So, listener, whatever you might default to, maybe funnel that into a healthy activity.
I
agree.
agree.
Anything that could vaguely be counted as productive.
It helps.
Yeah,
I feel
find
like
a new hobby.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a big. I think it's anxiety. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of everything. But you constantly telling yourself you're not doing anything. It's not okay. It's not okay that you're not doing anything. Having a very simple, like, helpful thing that you can do. Like, I spent like a day updating my resume, making it look really pretty. That's like a very easy, low brain function task you can do. A good hobby, like you said, like pick up guitar playing or something, like low brain function, calming. Drawing is another great one, although that feels like work to me now.
Yeah, drawing is a really great one.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah, I suck at drawing. But...
I mean, me too.
But I play guitar.
I would say get a hobby and keep the expectations out of it. So if you tend to want to provide more for an audience, don't show it to anybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I lost the joy of writing the moment I started letting people read my stuff anonymously, and I was just like, that's it, no more, that's gone. Like, I can't do it anymore because the joy is gone. So just whatever you do, if you suck at drawing and you want to draw, and just let it be like, I'm making myself better. The little sim bar over your head of like skill is going bloop, 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 bloop. Yeah. And that's how you gotta think about it.
I totally agree. It's very helpful. Just having good hobbies. I mean, that's what YouTube was for all of us, I think. Just a hobby to begin with. Yep. They can become your career if you're not careful. Like, and obviously
if you're not careful, be careful, kids. Listen,
don't let
we
your
all love our jobs.
Too powerful.
We love our jobs. I'm sure I can speak for all of us, but you know, after a certain point, they get tainted. The pure joy of it gets tainted a little bit by the expectation and the I need to live from this now-ness of it.
So, the next question I have for you guys is whether, specifically for you, Dan, I'd love to know if this was just like a snap thing, like it popped into existence, or if it's been like a slow build your whole life, and then there was a breaking point, or like trigger.
Yeah, so for me, it was more of a snap. So about 3 months ago, so I'll kind of go into this. So I had what's called a manic episode, where, so let me think of how it started. Uh, basically, I came up with an idea of something I wanted to do with my work and this kind of like new project I wanted to work on. And also, one of my best friends committed suicide last year, and we were coming up to the 1-year anniversary of his death. So there was that as well. And basically, I got so involved in this project, and also like, so I'm Catholic, and I'm into like prayer and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was in like a deep state of prayer, and like I wasn't sleeping, and basically I didn't sleep for like 3 days.
Yikes.
And started hallucinating, but it's because I had so much energy, and like I just couldn't slow down.
Yeah.
And I wasn't eating right, I wasn't sleeping, and then my wife, like, she didn't know what to do, so
Yeah.
she's like this all happened. She's like, okay, and she just started like Googling like mental facility or whatever, and then it brought me into this place, and I really didn't want to go, but I like reluctantly agreed. And they kind of like observed me for the night. I finally got some sleep. They like gave me some tranquilizer or something. And then I got transferred to a behavioral health facility, and I was kind of like hospitalized for, I'd say like 10 days, where they were kind of like throwing medication at me and just trying to get me down off that high. And I was kind of like, it's like I was tired but wired, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
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 I totally understand.
And so I was at the facility for 10 days. Did a lot of coloring, a lot of like goals, and they had pretty good food there too. Which surprised me.
Oh, that's good.
Nice.
That was like the one thing I look forward to. And definitely like I learned a lot about myself and my condition, and kind of like gave me a chance. Like I didn't have my phone, which was weird because I kind of like went into like smartphone withdrawals.
Oh, that's fascinating. You need to tell me about that.
Yeah, and then because I remember like after 10 days, like I got released, and like my wife like gave me my phone, and I was like, "What is this?"
Oh, that
Like,
makes
what
me
is
want to
this
like
magic?
try that, but at the same time I can't because that's my
can't.
job,
I
and it's
can't-
like I don't
I can't do it.
know. Ooh, if I could just go like 10 days without a phone.
Yeah, try to do it for just like a day,
Oh my
Never
god.
Ooh,
happened.
just throw my phone in a drawer.
Oh,
Maybe.
right? Just be disconnected for like a day.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
Interesting.
could do that. Maybe like when I have like a free day that I don't have to get anything done, I might try that. Just
Never.
For a day.
I.e. never.
Yeah. If I went 10 days, it was like,
Never.
That's crazy.
but yeah, so then after that, I went to this intensive outpatient program, which was like 3 times a week for like 3 hours a day, and that kind of helped. But what sucked was I didn't have depression at that point, and it wasn't until I went back to work that the depression started.
Oh, yeah. That's when the like low lows hit.
Yeah, and that's when the lows hit. That's when suicidal thoughts came in. That's when, yeah, it was pretty rough. And I'm still like, I'm like just starting to get out of it now, which is
Yeah.
good.
Which is
yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
I remember you were talking earlier about it was something that I hardcore related to was the feeling of not wanting anything. That
Yeah.
there was just nothing that
Yep.
you wanted to do. And like in my most depressive state, that's like exactly how I was describing it to people, is that there's just nothing I want. Which is like it sucks because it's literally like a lack of reason to live. It's miserable.
Yeah. Then that's where I had been for a while. Is like, I just wasn't interested in anything,
Yeah.
and
Like it's hard to have a hobby or something like
Yeah.
to help distract you from this when you don't want a hobby.
yeah, and you basically have
Yeah.
to just like force yourself to like do things that you used to like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to do, and that's what my goal is for the next couple weeks, is just force myself to do things and force myself my psychiatrist said it's really, if you have depression, it's really important to just be active.
That makes sense.
But it's like that's the exact opposite of what you want to do when
Yeah.
you have depression.
Yeah, pretty
So
much.
it's like Because, like, really, it's like I just wanted to just stay in bed and just
Not
stay
do
there
anything.
and
Totally
do
understand.
absolutely nothing
Mhm.
for life. And then I kind of wanted to die a little bit.
Mhm.
Or I'm like,
A
it'd
little
be
bit
nice to just, like,
perpetually.
sleep forever.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, yeah, that's called dying. Oh, okay.
That's called dying.
The sweet release. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
understand. That's awful.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it, like I wouldn't wish depression on, like, my worst enemies.
No, it's-
Yeah.
That's basically how
Yeah.
I
There's
described
definitely
it.
different levels, obviously, different types of depression. But you can slip from one to another pretty easily. David was
Yeah.
during the peak of his anniversary dealing with PTSD. He went from like escaping to games and not sleeping, which is a huge bad sign. You should sleep, and not wanting to sleep and not having a desire to and only playing games until like 4 a.m. to not wanting to even play a game, like to just sitting there and laying and then sleeping too much. You know what I mean? So you could be displaying all of these at different points depending on the level of depression
yeah.
that you have.
I went back and forth with that a lot.
Yeah.
It was RuneScape for me because I was pretty young. At the
Hey.
time.
Oh yeah.
I played
Yeah.
so many
I
hours
still-
of RuneScape.
He's like, yeah.
Yeah, I
Are you
actually,
still
spoiler, I played it earlier today.
Ah.
You have a good account.
Yeah, well,
You have, like, a
one of my
very, like,
best friends
built account.
plays, like, he's,
Nonstop.
yeah, he's crazy. But I think I have, like, over 150 days in that game.
Same.
Yep.
At my peak.
That-
Yep. Yeah, that was what I did.
You have
when
like
I
so many
was
capes and stuff
my
too.
11-year-old depressive states. I would not sleep for days. I would just play RuneScape, and then, my parents were like, "Are you all right?" But we're like a super Southern family. They had guns in the house and stuff. It was just such a
Yeah.
bad situation. I want to take this
Yeah.
moment. If you have a fucking gun in your house, don't.
Yeah.
What a
Don't.
bad
Oh, yeah.
call.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this doesn't apply
yeah.
to everybody else, but like anybody with any sort of mental illness history, like do not have a gun in that house.
That makes
I
sense.
went through a period where
Or,
I
like-
shouldn't even have any knives around. Like you need to be super careful, not for you specifically, but for anybody else in your household.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, when you're in a good mental state, if there are people, like, for example, I have a roommate who has a gun, and I had to have a discussion with him when I was in a sound mind and be like, you need to get a safe for your gun.
Yeah.
And he was kind of like, why would I need to do that? It's not like anything. And I was like, I've clinically diagnosed depression. I'm a suicide risk. At some times, you need to have something to keep this away from me, otherwise you can't have it in the house. And he was like, oh crap, I didn't even think about that. Because it wasn't like something that was necessarily at the top of his mind that I would take his gun and hurt myself.
Yeah.
And like, sure enough, there was a point where I hit this low, and if like, I don't know, it was just very bad. Like, I'm glad he had his gun in the safe. That I could not access
I had a
it.
friend in high school. They took his parents' gun and shot himself. It happens all the time. It's not far-fetched. It's just not. Lock your guns up. If you have any history of anything, don't have one. You just don't need that chance. It's such an easy it's such an easy thing to do. That is it's such a I don't know how to describe feeling suicidal.
No,
but
I understand. You feel almost like
I
I haven't been suicidal myself, but
Yeah.
I've been around people who are, and I've had to calm somebody down who was, and they seem almost their mind is just not straight. I don't know how else to describe it. They're just like, I could just jump off the building, and you're like, no, don't.
Yeah.
But it's like not even a big deal to say such a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just like they're there
Yeah.
in their mind, and it's almost like a river. It's like a swift river that just takes you down, and it's like a really quick thing, especially with something like a gun that's literally just click a trigger.
Yeah,
in
it's like a
half
button.
second.
It's like a die button.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is it's not just it's not the they could do it a different way kind of argument. It's that makes it so much easier for them to do it, that you can't think about it as they have all these options of ways to kill themselves. That's not what it was for me. I didn't want, at the time, I didn't want the pain. Later I got into self-harm, but at the time I was like, I don't want to feel any pain, I just want it to be over, because that was the kind of idea of just like, let's just kill button nothing. Like I wanted no feelings. That was the goal. And so, what is the fastest way I could get from this horrible state to the no feelings? Gun. That, to me, it made perfect sense. Like, that was the one thing I needed to fix the problem. It was problem solving in just an illogical way. And
It's a very
and
efficient
that's
way
exactly
to die.
what it is. It's problem solving in an illogical way. It's exactly how I can, from the outside's perspective, dealing with somebody who was. It's, you know, they were jumping to conclusions because we didn't have a gun, and so they're like, we could do that, and I'm like, no, because then you have to go upstairs, and I'm not going to let you do that. You know what I mean? Whereas it's something like a gun is just like, you turn the corner, you go to look for them, and there you go.
And I can't imagine how hard it is for bipolar, because for me it was like a slow build to suicide, so people could kind of see where I was going, although nobody at the time called out.
Did anything?
Now I have people looking at me. But for bipolar, I'm sure it's a lot faster from fine to downhill, although I'm not 100% sure, but I would guess it is.
A little bit. It depends, because there's two types of bipolar. There's bipolar 1, which is like more like mood swings, and bipolar 2, where you're kind of like stuck on one end of the spectrum. But so for me, I have bipolar 1, so it's more like kind of a little more sudden as far as like the like suicidal thoughts and that kind of thing.
That's the most dangerous. That's no good.
Yeah, it is. Luckily, like, I have a good support network.
That's good.
You know, I have my wife, I've got my parents, her parents, family, friends, that have really like helped me. But it's that's the thing that sucks the most, I think, when you have depression or you have is just that feeling of loneliness, of like no one understands, no one knows you, and you just like feel so alone, and you just kind of want to like cut yourself off from the world, which is like the worst thing for you to do. But that's what you want to do when you're in that.
It's what you want to do, and it's what feels the safest, because you feel so worried about being a burden to somebody or whining about something that they don't understand, or
that was a big deal for me.
Giving somebody too much information about yourself and then they judge you, or like, that's why I cut off. Like, even in an anonymous, like, I got on an anonymous Discord server, like purely anonymous, and I was like, these are my problems. I still couldn't share my problems because I was just like, I can't
That's
have
been a
people know.
big help for me is being open about it. And back in the day, I mean, it was on me, although my family didn't recognize it, and they should have. And I feel like that's why this kind of conversation is helpful, so you can know the signs and stuff. But what I was saying is, like, it helps to be open, and it may seem so wrong, because if you lose an arm, you can show it. You can be like, look at my bleeding arm right now. It's a bad situation. You can tell this is critical. But it's just as dangerous when you're suicidal. You just can't be like, look at this. Look at this stuff in my brain.
Take your brain out and then show it to somebody. Look
at this.
It's a mess. It's on fire. Sorry.
Yeah, and you wish you could, because physical embodiment, it would horrify people, you know? It would. It took me a very long time to realize, like, the normal level and then where I was, because it is your normal if you've lived like it forever.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I was born like this, I feel like. I don't think I had, like, a traumatic experience or something that changed me, although I think it got worse at times when things happened, but I think I was just, like, born with the imbalance, and I had no idea. So I think that is different from... That's why I was interested in if, Dan, you were, like, triggered all of a sudden, or if it was just, like, forever.
Yeah, definitely more of a trigger in my case.
Yeah, it was very, like I could see it. Like, it was very, like, sudden shift.
That's interesting.
It was very, like...
That's so interesting.
It was like, bam.
It's crazy how that can happen. And I think that goes to show so much of, like, it's not a person thing. It's a chemical imbalance. It's a medical fucking problem. It's very real. And it needs to be addressed in a medical way. And, my boyfriend got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, like, in the middle of his 20s. So weird. And he's not overweight. He's healthy. And it just happened all of a sudden. Like, it was so strange. And I feel like it's the same thing with mental illness. It can strike you like lightning and ruin your fucking life. It's great.
And you can also be conditioned on the opposite end of the spectrum to think that that's just normal. So I don't want to get into history or whatever without him being here. But I can disclose that he'd been struggling with various issues since he was very young. And when I met him, I was like, well, that's not normal. And he was like, it's not. Like, there were so few people in his life who, I won't say didn't care. There were people in his life who didn't know to care. Kind of like your parents, Hannah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, they didn't know to care. So he was just always told, well, just get over it. Be a man. Whatever. And then when I told him, like, that is not normal cognitive behavior. That is not a normal thought process. This isn't a normal situation. He was like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. See, this is the nature versus nurture thing.
Yeah.
Because, like I had a very, like, I've had depression almost all of my life, and I think it is a very mental thing, but on the outside, I was growing up in a situation that was conditioning me and my depression to, like, it wasn't helping. I was in an environment that was negatively affecting the chemical imbalances in my brain, and so I've had depression almost all of my life. Like, I was diagnosed with childhood depression. Wow. It slowly got better, and then it got worse. Mm-hmm. And it's just, part of it is because of the environment that I've lived in my whole life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, so I feel like, before we end this thing, I just want to say, like, some quick things that you can identify to maybe save somebody's life. I've had to bring several of my friends into therapy. You don't have to do anything crazy, like lock them up or whatever. Like, you don't have to bring them to rehab and be like, you can't leave. But you have to be like, hey, I'll go to the therapist with you. And it just takes that sometimes to, like, fucking save somebody's life. And maybe not save their life, but at least improve it, because it's not fun to live like this. It's not fun to be around, and it's not fun to be.
Yeah.
You need to get the problem solved. So, if they're reclusing, if they used to be your friend and now all of a sudden you don't see them very much anymore, they could not like you, but more likely they're having an issue.
Yeah.
You need to ask. This is a thing. You need to be proactive and fucking ask them. Sometimes it helps to do it over text so that they can be more open with you. I've done that with many of my more introverted friends. Text them, be like, hey, what's up? I noticed you've been different. Then they can write you a novel, and it's a great time. And then immediately that day, schedule a time to go to a therapist with them. If they start giving away their prized possessions. I had a friend give me his PS1, his PlayStation 1, and all of his old games. And I was like, you really like this? Let's go to the therapist. Like, that's not a good sign. They're gift giving. If they're writing really dramatic letters, or, you know, there's more obvious ones and there's more not obvious ones. There could be
or
just,
if
like,
there's somebody that you're like, but let's just say there's somebody that you're okay with, that you're not like best friends with, and like you see each other sometimes at school or at work, or that's it. That's really the basis of it. And then they just call you one day, answer the phone.
Yes.
Like, that happened a few months ago with one of my few IRL friends. They called, and I was like, what? David answered the phone, and they were suicidal. You know, like, be present.
Yeah. Be
present, because you can... Yeah. You don't want to be the person that didn't answer, because unfortunately I've known some people who tried to call. Thankfully they didn't end up killing themselves, but they tried to call some people. Everybody said, don't talk to me, or got off the phone or didn't answer. And that person was left alone. And that's very dangerous.
The day my friend committed suicide, he was texting people suicidal things, and nobody visited. Nobody came. It's awful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say is just, like, if you're having those kind of suicidal thoughts, don't keep them to yourself.
Yeah, say something.
Like, don't be afraid to, like, tell someone about it, because unfortunately I had one of my best friends kill themselves, and nobody saw it coming. Like, he didn't share it with anybody, and we're all just like, how did this happen? So, it's really important, if you're feeling suicidal, tell someone about it.
Also, listening is a good thing too. Like, when people, like, tell you that they're experiencing something bad, it's like, it helps to just be there. I don't know.
You don't have to be like, well, why don't you just feel better, or like really offer a solution. Sometimes just listening and letting them know that you love them and that you're there for whatever they need is really enough. You don't have to try to fix something that you don't understand.
Yeah, that's something
I feel
my
like
Tony does a lot, is like, let's fix it. And I'm like, give me a second, dude. There's no fixing it. It's a journey. It's a journey, and it starts with me talking to you for an hour. Yeah.
This is a journey.
You can't just hop up one day and be like, let's solve the anxiety problem that you've been dealing with since you were born. Woo! Today's the day.
It's like for me, I don't know if it's completely related, but for me, when I'm experiencing, or when I'm going through like a severe depressive, like, downfall or whatever, I've gotten in the habit of just like alerting my like my roommates and everything, because I'm more of a like distraction person in terms of a coping method. So I'll just tell them like, hey, just so you know, I'm feeling really suicidal right now. I'm probably just gonna start crying. Just pretend I'm not, and let's talk about other things. And I'll just be like, distract me, please, help me, like, bring me into a different moment. So that's like just like a weird coping method for me, but I think that it's very important that they understand like why I'm behaving in certain ways. I also feel like it makes it more comfortable for them, because I'm just like, pretend it's not happening, because it's going to be really uncomfortable, but I want you to know that it is, like, it's here.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to cry or let something out, and I don't know about anybody else, but I personally feel very uncomfortable crying in front of anyone. Like, I do not like it. I cry, I do, but I don't like it around people, even my husband, to the point that I'm like, I will hold it in until I walk away, and I will let it out. Sometimes, and I don't want the attention of like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I don't want it to console me. It makes me feel weak. But, I know that's a bad thing, but, sometimes if you're just like, I'm going to cry, and I don't need you to console me, I just need to let it out, and then let it out. Like, that's good. Do that.
Communication!
Yeah.
It's great.
And it's like, it makes a huge difference. And lastly, even if you don't experience these super intense types of mental health issues, you could still have something a little bit more mild, like ADHD, that affects your productivity at work, or affects your ability to do well in school. You know, other mild mental health disorders are still mental health disorders. And you might not get to a suicidal place, but if it goes on, like, ignored, it can in time. So don't be afraid to go to a therapist, ask for help, talk to a friend, even if it's not a huge deal. And you're like, well, it's not like that. I don't deserve to talk to anybody about it. Lies. Yeah. Talk to somebody.
It's often the thing they get paid for, so you don't have to feel bad about it. All right. I feel like that's a really good note. Any last mentions, last things?
You're great. You're okay. You're okay even though you're not okay. That's my... It's okay to not be okay.
Just remember that you're never alone.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good positive. I like your positive, Dan. All right. Crystal, you want to say our things?
Yeah, you can find us on every Monday on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Anyway, you can find us at
Happy Panda Party.
Go.
At Echo is Weird.
At The Crystal Joy.
And remember, friends, the human body cannot survive without salt. Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Cool. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.